Hello, Internet, and welcome once again to the Free-to-Play cast, brought to you by MMOBomb.com, your home for all things free-to-play related. I'm Mike Byrne, aka Magicman, and this is episode 271. Let's fix that right there. We're recording on August 9th. You're watching it on August 10th or later. Also, fix that because it bugs me. Perfect. Now we're all set. We've got some exciting news about an IP that we haven't heard a lot of in a long time. We've got a company that's still doing well, just not as well, maybe. And free to play on consoles, so lots of things to talk about. But first, let's introduce the hosts. Mr. Jason Winter, how are you, sir?
I'm doing real well. I swear I will have something on this wall behind me at some point. Just so it's not just blank white the whole time.
Yeah, it looks like you're in a jail cell. Yeah.
Just paint it green. Just paint it green and then use green screen effects.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
There you
I want to do one other thing too before you move on. I want to piss off Q. Watch this. I'm going to piss off Q. Go look at my other monitor.
Did you see the picture of that bike?
No, I did not.
His other monitor.
He and Zach are just crazy over how far apart my second monitor is.
Yeah, his monitor is like way over.
Yeah, see, mine is, I got monitor 1, monitor 2.
See, that's about the same as me.
2.
I've got monitor 1, 2.
That's no difference. That's like when you're you're exactly like when you're at the optometrist and there's no difference between 1 and 2.
1, 2, 1, 2.
Aladdin 4,
I can watch
Jafar
out of the
needs
corner of
glasses.
this eye.
Also on the line, I'm sure you noticed, Quintlin Bowers. What's up, Q?
Hey.
You didn't get like your own intro because you were brought into Jason's unceremoniously by Jason Winter. All right, let's slide over and get started with no monitor nonsense. Let's go with the news. All right, shut up, Beagle. I hear it up there. I hear it. Anybody want a dog?
We
seriously,
got one.
seriously. Like that could not have been better timed, for crying out loud. I'm yelling at the dog, and now I'm yelling at the phone, and I pull my headset out. All right, we're back in. We're back in business. So we haven't heard a lot from what I think generally Q and I have talked about this specific game off and on for years. From Runic Games, now under the Perfect World umbrella, has been for a while. We're talking about Torchlight. Now, it's not free to play, Torchlight 1 or Torchlight 2. You have to buy those guys. Did Torchlight 1 end up going free to play?
You know, I want to say one of them did. That almost seems like
hold
a thing.
I feel like Torchlight 1, now that I'm thinking about it, might have.
Let me ask Steam if I can remember my stupid code.
Oh, they did a free thing where they gave away copies of it.
Okay.
That's right.
They have a free demo for 2, so there's
Yeah,
that
you
too.
get free full copies for both games once you redeem this code. And that was a while ago. I'm amazed I remember that. That was a while ago. Jason, you kind of felt it too. You're like, I have a feeling that went free. So we're talking about Torchlight, the ARPG by Runic Games, very much in the vein of a Diablo-type game, isometric, camera angle, go into your dungeons, kill a bunch of things, loot. And Torchlight 1, if we think back to that, I mean, that was back in 2009 when that initially released. People were generally pretty positive about Torchlight, but Q, it wasn't exactly what Runic Games had intended when they released that product versus what they actually wanted it to be back then.
No, I actually remember this very clearly because I was still working at Game Breaker at the time, and I had seen the whole free-to-play Torchlight MMO thing that they had. That was what they had promoted it as, free to. And then they came out with Torchlight that everybody got, and it was like what, $20 or something like that to get the original Torchlight as a single-player game. And I said on Twitter, I was like, "There's no way I'm buying a single-player game for $20 when they're going to have an MMO coming out." Like, I'm not buying what in my mind was basically a demo when they first announced it. I was like, why am I going to pay $20 for a demo when there's a free-to-play MMO coming out? And I actually got a response from them. Like, I didn't at them or anything else, but I got a response that was basically like, no, this is a different thing. You'll like it. So yeah, it was.
Well, we saw the move to Torchlight 2 then, and they did kind of start incorporating, like, multiplayer was available in Torchlight 2, but it was very much Torchlight 1, just a little smoothed out, some multiplayer added in, peer-to-peer multiplayer added in. Modding capabilities was a big one that was available in Torchlight 2 as well, and as well as some game changes as well. Jason, did you ever play either of them? Because I spent a fair amount of time in both, even after the disappointment of, because we were all kind of sad when we found out that Torchlight 2 was sliding under the Arc umbrella with Perfect World Entertainment. We were kind of happy that we thought, okay, it'll be free to play. Then it didn't. That was like one of the first titles that PWE kept a box price on. Now we've seen that more with Live Lock and some other titles going forward. Mm-hmm. So there was a bit of a bittersweetness there. But what are your experience with both Torchlight 1, Torchlight 2?
I never played the first one. For the second one, weird thing was I got it for it was on sale. It was like $5. I think they had it on Arc just before it came to Steam or something like that. They had it on the Arc system for $5, and I picked it up. Never got into it. And finally one night, I was just on Twitter. I was like, "Come on, anybody want to play this with me?" And our good reader from Hell responded, and I actually played for an evening with him for a couple hours. And that's all I've ever done with it. So, not hugely experienced, but something that looks kind of interesting. I've never been a great ARPG fan. I've only just gotten into Path of Exile lately, so it's never gotten into Diablo and all that. So it's not really been my thing, but got just a little bit with it.
So, yeah, I loved them. But, and as we get to something we're going to talk about here in a minute, I agree with some of the things that Max Schaefer, CEO of Ectra Games, the studio behind the title we're going to talk about in a minute, I agree with some of the things he said there, Q, because, yeah, it never... I was with you. I thought this is going to be cool. This is an MMORPG. This is going to be very... And then it was, oh, here's a little ARPG. Almost disappointed by it. I still enjoyed the game. I like doing the dungeon delves and the loot crawls and all of that. And Torchlight 2 was more of that. And now I could peer-to-peer with a couple of friends, so that was even better. And some of the systems with, the pets and stuff were streamlined out. But I just feel like Torchlight, as much as I enjoyed the games, they never got to where I really wanted them to be. And I think that has a lot to do with the way they described it at the at the onset, and it never really materialized into that.
Yeah, well, I think that the first two never really got to where they wanted them, to necessarily be. At least the big plan for the Torchlight IP, because, like I said, they announced it as an MMO to start with, so that's where they were thinking at. And obviously where the rest of us were. In one way, it was a good plan, though, right? Once they got everybody to realize it's a separate thing, what I figured at that point is they were going to continue to work on the MMO and use original Torchlight to kind of fund it. Okay, well, we're selling you this game, but it helps us fund this bigger project kind of deal. And it was one of those things where I was reading on it this morning, and I honestly hadn't realized it, that a good while back they actually went, oh, there's just not going to be an MMO at all. So this is a bigger surprise at this point.
Well, what we're talking about is today we were treated to the reveal announcement for Torchlight Frontiers, and the way it's being officially described is a shared world action RPG. It will be available in 2019 on the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, and the PC. So first yay, it's cross-platform. That's awesome. Now we don't know about functionality between them, and presumably Xbox and Microsoft will continue to be dicks about some of their stuff, which we'll talk about on a topic a little later in the show.
I thought that was Sony that was being the asshole about the cross-platform.
Oh yeah, that's
stuff.
right. It was Microsoft forever, and now Sony's the one that's causing. You're right, Q. You're right. It's now so Sony presumably will lock out your Torchlight Frontiers account from any...
If you ever played Fortnite or whatever. I don't know.
If you've ever played Fortnite, that's it. And so we're going to be talking about some of the things that were in the announcement. We've got a long time to wait, 2018, and one of the big disclaimers we got to put on this right at the top is that we do not know if this will be free to play or not. Our Perfect World Entertainment contacts that were chatting with us behind the scenes weren't ready to confirm whether it was going to be free to play or not. I hope it would be free to play. My gut feeling right out of the gate, Jason, is it probably won't be.
That would be my thought too, just because again, sure it's Perfect World, but it's Torchlight too, and I think they've generally not gone the free to play route.
Q, you kind of agree there? I'd like it to be free to play, but probably won't be.
The original was intended to be free to play.
That's
all I know. They intended for that original game to be free to play. So if that's what they're going back to, there's a possibility.
So we're going to discuss this from that caveat, of course. We hope it's free to play. There's a chance it could be, based on company and genre and what the developers planned for the original. But there's also a chance that it couldn't be, given Torchlight 1 and 2 still aren't. So we're going to be talking about, most of these things came, by the way, from an interview with IGN, written by Jared Petty. Presumably, Jared Petty wrote the actual interview. It's not from some other YouTube page, and they just posted it.
Oh.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Come on, that's funny. That's funny. No, Jared Petty interviewed Max Schaefer. Jared, please don't take offense. That was not a joke at your expense, and if it came off that way, I apologize. I thought it was funny, though. So here's some of the things that Max had to say. First off, about Torchlight Frontiers. We've been toiling in anonymity for the last couple of years, so it's super exciting and super fun to finally be able to talk about it, I'm sure. There was a pretty big fan base for Torchlight that has kind of just been sitting there with Torchlight 2 for a while. And the way he describes it, Jason, it's a shared world with persistent elements and instance elements. We're just always shying away from the term MMO because every time someone says that word, everyone has a wildly different, very specific definition of what that means, which I can certainly appreciate, right? Now, if he said MMORPG, we would expect a very certain thing, but MMO by itself, some people, that's not my dog. Some people,
really.
Some people count MOBAs, some people don't, some people count Battle Royale, some people don't. So I can understand that. But what do you think? What are you envisioning when you hear addictive loot loop, dungeon crawler, social and live service qualities of an MMO, shared world, persistent elements, and instanced elements? What are you kind of envisioning here?
I guess I'm thinking something maybe along the lines of like Marvel Heroes in terms of gameplay, which has always seemed to be a little more community, a little more multiplayer than, say, Path of Exile. I feel like it's a lot easier to go into the different worlds and group with friends and do that sort of thing. You're in a world here to do that as well, and it's got that more persistent world kind of look to it. So that's kind of along the lines of the game that I'm anticipating. And yes, I'm going to call it an MMO.
He was asked why the shared world focus, and he explained that he's intrigued with potential new dimensions and MMO-style adds. Specifically, what the first two Torchlights lacked, I think, compared to what we're doing, is a sense of enfranchisement in the world. You were basically just a character in Torchlight 2. You'd play through, you could play through it again, you could level up, but you were never really a part of the world of Torchlight. You were just kind of an actor in it, and you were really mostly on your own. What we wanted to do with this one was two things. Give you a piece of this world, make you part of this developing and evolving world in a way that's meaningful. And two is to create a service game where, after we go live and put it out and are with people, we can continue to develop the world of Torchlight with our community. Q, what do you think they're going for here? Like, because I hear the PR speak, right? But okay, to a certain extent, Torchlight 2 had that. There was peer-to-peer play, jump in with your friends. It seems like they're looking at something bigger, but don't really want to say what that bigger is right now.
I think an important key there might be the phrase give players a piece of the world. Like, to me, that translates to property or housing or something that you might be fighting over, or like something that's actually yours in game when they say like give you a piece of the world. Because like if they're just like, oh well, your character is a big like a bigger part of the story or something, that's not really true in a multiplayer game. Like, that's less true in a multiplayer game. You go from being an actual hero in a single player game to being one of the many heroes. Everybody's a hero. Like, kind of thing. So I'm thinking there's going to be at least like some sort of social housing thing. I did notice too that they said that They're not doing auction houses, which is definitely more like Path of Exile.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I was going to get into next. Some of the things that, while he wouldn't confirm a lot, they did confirm no auction houses. They don't want to interfere with the whole loot loop. So you won't be able to obtain things through some type of auction house instead. We heard this with Dauntless too, though, right? Didn't we, Jason? He almost quotes it exactly. We don't want to do anything that interferes with. That's the way you find cool loot. All right, Dauntless. They also talked about the pet system is going to be coming back, and yes, you'll be able to do some things that you could have before in the previous games, fight along with you, take things away, and go sell them while you're still in a dungeon. They did say that that's going to be greatly expanded, that they're going to add some new things to it. That's just scratching the surface of what pets do this time around, but they wouldn't go into it. But he did say, hey, if you're a fan of Diablo or Torchlight, stages will be procedurally generated. We do obviously more of that in the private instance, so there are shared open world components, and then these are shared instance parts of the game. It's randomized where it's effective and fun. And Jason, I think you put the nail on this one when we were talking about it in Skype. I tend to agree with you. This sounds more like a Dauntless approach, where the action, the dungeon, the pursuit, the hunt is the instance procedurally generated part, with more of a central, maybe bigger world hub where you see a lot of other players that aren't necessarily in your group. I kind of get that vibe listening to the way he's talking about this. Yeah,
and I don't know necessarily if it's going to be... I guess I could sort of see not so much the literal housing thing like Q described, but something more like I guess the difference between playing, let's say, a Final Fantasy single player game versus playing Final Fantasy 14. It's like in one of those, you're a part of the world, but you're just kind of playing a role. You're playing a character. Whereas in an MMO, it does feel like you are more part of the world, and you can experience that kind of in your own way, as opposed to going along the linear storyline and playing a set character. So that's where I think he's trying to draw a distinction here between this and previous games.
They did also, Max did go into kind of an example to go along with that, Jason, where he says they're not going to iterate cities. There's no reason to do that. You want to know where the vendors are and things like that. They won't procedurally generate a city. And that's kind of good because, life doesn't work that way. I don't go to downtown Pittsburgh and have the layout different every single time I go.
Typically when you drive from Pittsburgh to somewhere else, the road doesn't change every time procedurally generated.
Thank God.
but yeah, it makes sense to do it that way, to have it be the same thing always in the towns. But you want to have different content when you go out in the world, so you definitely want to have... It's good if they can make the procedural generated stuff.
You know what, though? He actually worked on Hellgate and Mythos.
Yes, and Mythos never came out. But...
Well, it did, kind of. It was in beta. I played it.
Well, no, I'm talking about a release, because the studio got tied up in that whole shutdown.
But I actually got to play Mythos when it was doing beta stuff. But with Hellgate, if I remember correctly, it functioned kind of in that way. There was one big hub area, and then you went off into your individual things. And I'm pretty sure Mythos functioned the same way. So they could just be pulling, from way back for the stuff that they did before and, updating it.
I thought it was interesting to note that they talked about the team that they've built for this. And they kind of got, lucky in some regards as far as who they could bring on. Lots of ARPG fans and big names in the ARPG. Maybe not that their names, but their resume includes big titles that you've definitely heard of. And I thought this was an interesting quote, which might be concerning to some people, Jason. We have more people that worked on Diablo here than worked on Torchlight 1.
At this point, who hasn't worked on Diablo? Isn't it required if you're making an ARPG, you have to have some people who worked on Diablo?
Yes.
David Brevik is probably here somehow, some way. He's involved in everything.
Hey, I did see that he tweeted congrats about the announcement.
Yeah, of course, he's got to be involved every time.
But Diablo's doing more stuff, so...
No,
and he's typically working for Grinding Gear doing Path of Exile stuff, but whatever.
There you go.
no release date, just 2019. They are talking about that everything is designed from the ground up with controllers or keyboard and mouse in mind. Obviously makes sense because they're using the consoles with the Xbox and the PlayStation 4. If you're going to Gamescom or PAX West, they are planning to have a playable version there, so you could play a little demo and let us know what you think of it. To sum it all up, I gotta say, I'm super excited to see another Torchlight on the horizon, even if it was just a Torchlight 3 to me. I like that they're teasing some bigger elements, Q. I wish I had the answers to some of those bigger elements right now, but this is definitely one that, free-to-play or not, is on my radar now until 2019 when it releases. What about you, Q?
I like the Torchlights anyway, and like I said, it's kind of a throwback to what I was anticipating to begin with. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Jason, that's 2 out of 2. Where are you?
I
knew it.
Me and ARPGs. I got my Path of Exile fixed, and that's all I can handle at one time. So.
And you know what? I'd say I'd buy you a copy, but you wouldn't play it anyway.
Yep. Well, it's gonna be free to play, right?
Totally
gonna be free to play.
You can just stick it right next to The Witcher 3.
I played some of that.
Speaking of buying things, let's move on and talk about NEXON, who released their Q2 financials. And if you were anybody else, they might be pretty good. And they're even better than last year's, which, hey, great. But if you came off the Q1 NEXON had, this wasn't the best news ever, Jason.
Yeah, well, because Q1 was the best news ever. In fact, they called that record-breaking back then. And the Q2 stuff came down a lot. Like a lot. In fact, I think it was, let's see here. Going through it, it was, well, just in China alone, they dropped by like 60%.
I mean, they're still up over Q2 last year. No, just barely.
Yeah.
Just
they're up
barely.
2% of the revenue over Q2 last year, so year over year is great. Q1 had some crazy dungeon and fighter event in China that just, rocketed them into the stratosphere. Everything else is more or less the same. I mean, North America is actually down a fair bit. Japan is up a little bit. But yeah, it's the big difference in China that makes it a really big difference. But overall, I mean, it's pretty much in line with what they've done in previous quarters. So it's not like hopefully they realize that Q1 was an aberration, and all the executives weren't like, "Yeah, do that again every quarter from now on." Yeah, hopefully they realize that's not how it's going to go.
Yeah, and looking at the docket as far as releases, Q, that are coming up, I gotta say that, at least from my personal preferences, I don't care. They obviously, I mean, they had that huge increase in mobile. They acquired a bunch of NAT games, and they consolidated a bunch of the mobile stuff, and so there's tons of money in the mobile portion. I don't really do any mobile gaming. On the PC non-mobile side of things, they've got Moonlight Blade and Maple Story 2. Moonlight Blade, mildly curious, would be the best way for me to describe me. Maple Story 2, I know a lot of people love that, but I just never got into Maple Story, and I'm just not interested in Maple Story 2. So I gotta say, at least from my own perspective, a little bit lacking on that side of things. Maybe too many eggs in the mobile basket, but maybe I'm crazy. Q, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, business-wise, the mobile thing is smart. That's where, gamer and non-gamer, that's where a slew of the players are at these days. And it's just, easier to take your games with you anyway. You never have to stop playing. You never have to stop. You can just always play. But I don't like most of Nexon's games. I'm pretty on anyway. So, I mean, for people, it's great. I'm just not a Nexon person, really.
Here's the thing, Jason. Maple Story 2 has been in the works forever. I mean, we're finally seeing testing in the West here. But if we're Moonlight Blade has been as well, as far as coming to the West.
Yeah.
We reported on that back in January of 2017 that it was coming to the West, and
Well, it's only a year and a half. That's not so bad. It depends on,
That's not the longest we've waited on something.
Oh, it's no Bless.
True.
No.
It's no Bless Online, or hell, even Black Desert Online. But we'll see. I don't know. If you're a stockholder, though, there was a little bit of bad news on this one, that you weren't getting your dividends of surplus. You weren't getting your interim dividends paid out to shareholders. Pretty much, Jason, this came down to we still need the money.
Yeah, we need money. They basically said we need money to invest in other things. So yeah, that's pretty much how it is. I'm just comparing two real quick, trying to pull up all these different ones. Let's see. Yeah, it's interesting that. I guess really last quarter was an aberration. The percentage of revenue in China in Q4 was 43%. It's 48% this quarter. It was 67% the previous quarter.
Wow.
Mobile, obviously, and because of the Dungeon and Fighter thing, which I think is PC, mobile was 28%, 16%, and back to 23%. So, yeah, it's really you just kind of toss out Q1, I think. Just forget that happened. Except for all the nice bonuses,
That's your outlier, huh?
Pretty much, yeah.
I don't know. Hey, good on them, but I'm just not generally excited about anything they're working on right now.
And I don't know what to tell you.
Just wait for what is it? Air Ascended Realm. Wait for that to come out.
Yeah.
Wait for that to come out. Wait for that to come out and bomb. Some people get excited about Moonlight Blade. So there you go.
What is that Air MMO? Is that NEXON?
That's,
Blue. That's Blue Hole.
Yeah,
Blue Hole,
yeah,
okay,
Blue
yeah.
Hole.
I was just saying, the people need the next big Asian MMO to look forward to.
Yes,
it's so pretty. It's so pretty. And it won't be grindy like all
That
the
is
other ones.
half the reason I play games.
That's not NEXON, by the way, just to be clear.
No,
Blue Hole
I'm
developing,
just saying.
it's Cacao Games Publishing. That's the team behind Black Desert Online. Air Ascent Infinite Realm or whatever. Yes, of course. It's going to be the MMO savior, Jason. Shut up. It looks great. It looks fantastic. We'll see.
Like bless.
Shut up. Don't you dare say that. Don't you dare say that. The mess online. Finally, before we move on to the weekly bombs, a bit of an interesting rumor, which, if true, could be one of the smarter things I've seen Nintendo do in a while. So, again, we don't know if this is true or not, and we'll tell you where the rumor comes from, but free-to-play online games may not require a subscription on the Nintendo Switch. So, if you've been keeping score, the Sony PlayStation 4 to play free-to-play games doesn't require that you have their subscription. You do have to create a PSN account, but you can have the free one and play games like Fortnite, provided you don't want to ever play it on any other system. Then you also have Microsoft, who hasn't really been gentle on this one. Even if you want to play free-to-play gaming, you have to have Xbox Gold, even to get the free-to-play titles. And Jason, we're going to come back to a specific title that thought they were going to change Microsoft's mind on this, but apparently didn't. We'll come back to that in a second. Now Nintendo getting ready to release, in about a month, its online service, which is like $19.99 for a year, which, hell, that's very competitively priced as far as the Sony and Microsoft ones go. So not bad there. Not as many options. It doesn't seem like all that great. I don't like that the free games you have access to, you don't have access to the following month. I prefer something like Sony or Microsoft, where as long as I'm subbed, I have access to those. So there are things I don't like about Nintendo's online subscription service, and we'll have to watch to see how they play out. But on the free-to-play front, we got a weird little rumor, and they haven't said this officially. Users on Reset Era forums noticed some dialogue, some text on the eShop games. They had a disclaimer on eShop's games stating that players soon will need to pay for an online service to use the online features. Where the rumor comes from is that looking at the same pages for free-to-play games on the Switch, those games did not have that little disclaimer, did they, Jason?
That is correct. And the disclaimer in full reads, to use online services, you must have access to a wireless internet connection. Some online services may not be available in all countries. From the full launch of the Nintendo Switch online membership service in 2018, online play requires a paid membership. And that's what was found in most games, but not the free-to-play ones, apparently. So
yep.
The fact that that's omitted is interesting.
And could it just be a mistake? Q? Sure. Could just be an omission. But if you look at the list, kind of a curious omission. I mean, Fortnite is on the list. I can't believe that if they intended, they would have missed, what is that Battle Royale game? The,
Fortnite.
Yeah. But we've also got Paladins, Pokemon Quest, a Pokemon title. I don't think they would have forgotten that. Dawn of the Breakers, Fallout Shelter, Galax Z, Zachariah, Pinball, the Pinball Arcade, Kitten Squad, and Pinball FX3. Now, some of those you might go and say, oh, nobody was paying attention to the pinballs. But again, you've got Paladins, you've got Fortnite, and you've got a Pokemon title on there. I have to believe, Q, that they're going to be free regardless of a subscription. I just can't see an omission like this on those particular titles.
Well, especially not if that same text is on everything else. It means they're just copy and pasting it across the board. So how do you forget, like, you know, one of the most popular games out there right now? How do you forget to copy and paste to that one?
Right. Well, how do you forget to copy and paste it to Pokemon? Like, oh shit,
right, you
guys,
own that one.
What's that game with the little monsters?
The ones that just say their names over and over again.
Right?
Pika.
No, the one,
And the kids that are allowed
Catching
to wander
'em.
aimlessly in the woods without any adult supervision whatsoever.
And Jason, I mean, everybody and their mother is obviously putting up the disclaimer of this could just be an omission. I just don't see it. I don't see it when you're talking about titles that big.
Yeah, I think it's a deliberate non-move, I guess, at this point.
So that kind of begs the question then. That leaves Microsoft being the only console on the market that to play a free-to-play game, you have to subscribe to their paid gold service in some fashion, whether you do it by year or by a couple of months, whatever. You have to subscribe to it. And we know in particular, behind the scenes and vocally in front of the scenes, Wargaming hated this when it came to World of Tanks, and they talked years ago about how they were going to try and change Microsoft's mind about this, and I believe the quote was something to the effect of, show them how free-to-play works. That didn't really pan out, did it?
Not so far, apparently, because they're still Xbox still charges you. So, yeah, and I've recently asked them about that. I was supposed to get in touch with their CEO. I'm still waiting to hear the answer and see if anything interesting has come up with regards to like their new console World of Warships title. So, could be interesting.
I think this just needs to be settled, right? The free-to-play games should be free-to-play. Microsoft needs to let up on that one.
Mm-hmm.
And
just take a cut. Take a cut of the microphone.
Cross-platform needs to happen. Sony needs to let up on this one. I don't understand the holdouts. There isn't any of your player base that is like, no, I don't want to play with Xbox people. No, I don't want to play with Switch people. Nope.
I mean,
nope.
No, I don't know
Sony,
about
if you
that.
do this, I'm canceling. Of course, there's people that, hey, I'm going to play with my friends that are on PlayStation, whatever. Yeah, but nobody, I just don't see people picking, say, down with Xbox Gold, down with Xbox Gold. Yeah, I just don't see it happening. These are things your customers want, or, at worst, they just don't care about. So just do it.
Yeah, there are those people that still cling desperately to the console warship, but...
Unbelievable. Let us know how you feel in the comments below while we slide over and do the weekly bombs. Q, you're up.
You know what? I'm going to give a bomb to the fact that we finally got to use Discord for recording instead of Skype, and that my internet has held out so far through this entire thing. Now watch it go down.
We're not done. We still have like 15 minutes or so. Don't say that.
No, so I said now watch it go down.
Jason.
I actually used Discord a couple days ago to do my Path of Exile preview, which should be up on the website now if you're viewing this. But yeah, because we both me and Chris Wilson agreed, yeah, Skype sucks. Let's use Discord. But anyway, my bomb is to the new H1Z1 lead, Jace Hall, and his unrelenting optimism. He posted his a long post.
I hear like sarcasm dripping from you, and I'm not sure.
No, man, he's totally awesome. This is going to be great. H1Z1 is going to be the best game ever. Just ask him. Yeah, he's very optimistic about the game. Right? If you look at his, we did the article on it today, and if you look at his forum post, he's like, I believe this and I believe that. Just rah. He believes that toxicity isn't the fault of people just loving the game too much. And that the
I hate
Well-
that.
Oh, and the game, the H1Z1 things can become the Counter-Strike of the battle royale genre. It's all uphill from here, man. It's not a question. This is a direct quote from him. It is not a question of if we are going to deliver desired changes to the player base. It is only a question of when. Count on it.
The
The game's
Counter-Strike.
service- A good service delivers what its customers want. It's that simple.
I know that's the first thing that pops into my mind every time I hear somebody in a game use some racial slur against me is they just really like this game.
Yeah.
They
uh,
just,
that-
they just
They just love it so
They
much.
just love this game. That's immediately where I go. I'm going to give a dub bomb to Meridian59 making the jump to Steam, guys. Now, we made fun of Runes of Magic's late jump to Steam, but hell, Meridian59 was really holding out to make sure that that platform took off. So if you want to check out the ancestors, the beginning of the MMO, as you know it, you can now check it out on Steam soon. So
Meridian 59 probably older than most of our viewers.
yeah, it probably is. And I think there was a part that it hadn't come to Steam in so long because they weren't really sure what computer language it used. Valve was like, wait, what is this? What is this typed with? Oh, it's BASIC. Wait, what? It's what? So
They didn't recognize BASIC.
no, I'm kidding. I am kidding. I'm kidding.
It's actually not available till August 28th.
Yeah, it's later this month.
Not
And
quite
you can
yet.
check it out. From the viewers, Hydrex Sky Shadow says 2 bombs from me. Dub bomb to the new Heroes of the Storm character that is High Inquisitor Sally Whitemane as one badass new support. Definitely a buy from me. And an A bomb to the same character because it's going to break every single game after release and just for the reason that every little shit is going to pick her and not support. I mean, my god, did you see her abilities? Assassins have less aggressive abilities. As someone that plays 80% of the game as a support hero, I'm probably going to start crying after I see every single dumbass pick a new support and not do its job. I already have a low win rate, now I'll have it even lower. It's higher than mine, so take solace in that, I guess. Jason.
Count Destrucco, which is a great name.
Yes, it is.
Count Destrucco says we could use a futuristic. I got Fortnite on the brain.
We could use a fortnight. All right, Jason, what do you need 2 weeks for?
We could use a futuristic MMORPG in a world similar to the Fifth Element movie. And then you wouldn't have a season pass; you'd have a multi-pass.
Zing.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, we've kind of, as much as I pine for a good futuristic sci-fi MMORPG, I keep thinking, oh, that might, like Other Land, I thought, that's a good IP to go, and no, that didn't pan out.
No.
Other World, Other Land, I don't even remember.
Other
Star
Land.
Wars Old Republic. Oh, wait, hang on.
Yeah, that's Other Land.
Yeah, but is Star Wars futuristic or historical?
Well, it's a
Yeah.
long time ago in a galaxy
Right?
far, far away.
Yeah, but-
So,
So it's in the past. They're just more advanced than we are. Go ahead, Q.
Yummy Kami, if EA shuts me down, I just go indie, make a big donation, Kickstarter page, promise a whole universe, and then sell overpriced starships for a game that might eventually maybe come out in the year 2185. No refunds. Gee, I wonder what game we're talking about
I
here.
can't imagine.
I mean, that's a good idea. Somebody should probably do that. You'll probably
Right?
make millions. Daniel Fritz says, first, love the free-to-play cast. Been watching for 4 years. Daniel, we thank you for that, obviously. Yay, thank you. But there was no second, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Daniel meant to type something else there. First, love the free-to-play cast, because I thought maybe Daniel was trying to just say, first, but Daniel was nowhere near the first to comment, so I don't know. Daniel, if you had a second, put it on the next show. We'll leave all the watchers in suspense until next week.
I gotta know, man. I gotta know. What was your second?
Go ahead, Jason.
Tepic11 says, I think Tryon is working towards getting bought out by another company, possibly one of the Chinese or Korean ones. They have pretty much no reputation left in the West, deservedly so, and I can't see any developers going to them to publish their games. It's clear from Rift Prime and Defiance 2050 they're putting no real resources into development anymore, so that's the only sensible outcome, I think.
You know what,
they don't need reputation as long as they have money.
Well, that too. But yeah, and as jaded as that might sound, the way Tepic worded it, I started thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? That's not that's not crazy to me.
Mm.
You know, trying to get a little more under your profile and get scooped up by a Tencent or something like that.
Who else is going to do it?
Right.
And it
So,
would still only be
Tepic,
like the
I don't
third
think
big-
you're nuts. I don't think that's priority one, but I don't think you're nuts. I think there might be a little something to that.
Well, isn't it a wise idea as a company to kind of hedge your bets in that way anyway,
Yeah.
so that somebody might want to buy you at some point?
Yep.
So,
Question of the week on our last show. By the way, no show last week. You may have noticed Jason was moving. He's got that lovely white wall behind him. He's been moved to San Quentin. Should Riot Games make an MMO? And if so, should it be set in the League of Legends universe and use that lore? Or should it use something new? Riot all over the news for not only this topic, but other topics. We're going to stick to the topic we had 2 weeks ago here. Elusive X Treasure says, for the question of the week, if their meaning is MMORPG, as I suspect it was, then yes, go for it. I don't give a rat's hiney about the League of Legends world. I don't play it. However, I'm always for new options out there in the MMORPG space. Currently, the only things I'm solidly looking forward to are City of Titans, if it ever releases. Good luck. And Pantheon. So I say the more the merrier. I'm kind of interested in Pantheon too. I think Pantheon, though, Jason, is very much one of those titles we talk about that everybody pines for the days of harder, grindier, this, and then nobody plays it. So we'll see what balance they can strike with old hardcore and new sensibilities. I'm looking forward to Pantheon too. City of Titans, as much work as they are clearly doing, there is a lot more to go. So, Jason.
Haydrex Sky Shadow says, yeah, sure, why not? It's just, that's really enthusiastic there, Haydrex. Should they make a new game? Yeah, sure, why not? I mean, they have the money, and even the most known MMORPG, WoW, started from an RTS with not that much lore or characters. The only problem that I can see is they have too much lore and too many characters. There are so many loose ends and plot holes in the lore. I mean, it's more inconsistent and loose.
I think it's supposed to be this.
It's more consistent and loose than a shit after Mexican food. So I had to make sure to get that right there because it was such a good.
We wanted to make sure that the analogy maintained.
it didn't work for that. I'm not sure it was worth it.
No.
Go ahead, Q.
Daniel Oppenlander. Riot Games should make an MMO. They could do as Blizzard did, but wait a minute, didn't this almost the same exact thing we got going on here?
Right?
Just read the stuff.
They could do as Blizzard did. Blizzard went from an RTS to an MMORPG. Riot could go from a MOBA to MMORPG. First of all, they got Ghostcrawler. Second, all little fans would try an MMO out once, a lot. There's a space in there, guys. Would get hooked. A lot of players would get hooked. New people would try it out as LoL got some crazy PR, and every MMO gamer out there looking for new MMO every day. It would be a major win. Interestingly, we actually know a couple of writers for Riot, and they might actually do really well writing an MMO.
Yeah, I could think of one in particular that.
Scott.
Yeah, Scott would very.
And Ryan.
Very.
Mm-hmm. Guy used work for CCP. Yep.
Yeah. Proximities HD, imagine the Runeterra MMORPG, the League of Legends world. And I apologize if I get any of this stuff mispronounced. You just hit level 60 and can finally do the end game raid, which is versus Void characters. Malzahar is the final boss and Grand Wizard of the Void, and he is trying to set the world into total darkness to breed Voidlings. You just hit Ionian armor, which is able to allow you to kill the mighty Malzahar. And you League of Legends fans, that might sound really epic to you. I don't know. It sounds cool, but I don't know what it means. Go ahead, Jason.
You mean a raid where there's a big boss at the end and he's evil and you have to kill him?
Oh, you shut up.
Really?
You
so unique.
You
Anyway.
sad man.
Except the raid is in an arena.
And you actually you have to go through lanes to get to him too.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the raid.
Anyway,
such a spoiled sport.
Toysify says, funny you should mention Square Enix on the companies who could actually fund an MMO. Curious thing is, they already have an MMO currently in Japan that never made it to true MMORPG status, Fantasy Earth Zero. Sure, he has classes, factions, some quests, gear, and the like, but with 3/4 of the town deserted of NPCs, it was set to be so much more and never was. I vote that Square and Riot get together and remake Fez, complete Fantasy Star Zero Fez. Oh, that's great. Complete with more quests, buildable gear, insert new thing here. And also for many IPs, as the countries will allow, in its heyday, Fez was in 5 different IPs.
Well, and they also have Dragon Quest X, which hasn't made it outside of Japan. Interestingly enough, Square just billed me today for my Dragon Quest XI collector's edition. So, yay, I'll get that a month from now, but they got their money now. That's not fair. That's not fair. Go ahead, Q.
Drake on Riot should make a movie. Haven't we been saying that about Blizzard for years?
Yeah, no, don't do it. Question of the week this week: does the Torchlight announcement do anything for you? What are your hopes for the title, and will it be free to play? Make sure to put your thoughts in the comments below, along with your weekly bombs. Da bomb for something good, A bomb for something bad, or just a general question or comment for the panel. We'll be sure to throw it in next week's show. Until then, Q, where can everybody find you?
Hanging out on Twitter's Equitland, and actually I moved to Mixer, so I'm streaming over there occasionally under MissCreationX-Q.
Are you doing your drawings?
Some MMO streaming, a lot of Stardew Valley right now.
Oh, all right. What about you, Mr. Winter?
On Twitter at Winter Informal, streaming at twitch.tv/JasonWinter as usual.
I'm Mike Byrne. You can follow me personally on Twitter right there at magicman1, MAGICKMANN1. But more importantly, while you're there, follow at MMOBomb so you get tweets with all the news, giveaways, interviews, casts, first look, and more. And until next week, gang, stay safe. We'll see you on the servers.